All right, we're going to talk about tiling today from InDesign, and I have a 14-inch by 17-inch document. Oh, actually, it's 17 inches by 14. I'm doing a horizontal one. I'm going to turn on my inches for rulers. I'm going to make those inches real quick. So I just right-click on those because I think it's in picas right now, and I just want to see it for inches today. So I right-click on each ruler. And in InDesign, you have to do both the top ruler and the left ruler separately. So I have the word tile set in this design, and I've screened it back so I don't spend as much money on the toner because this is just a demo. And this needs to tile to two 11 by 17 pieces of paper. So we're going to print this. So let me save it first, and we will print it. Now, what is tiling? Tiling is something we have to do when our format for our project is larger than the format the printer can print it on. And so this is a pretty easy process as far as the printing goes. The actual putting together of the tile is a little bit harder than the print part. So we'll get to the printing first. So to print something that's large and you need to get multiple pages or tiled pages, you will go to File and Print. And I'm going to choose the Xerox 7800A. I believe the B printer is down, so don't waste your money. It won't tell you it's down when you go to print, but right now there's a sign on it that says the service has been called. So currently we just want to print to the 7800A color printer until we see that that sign has been removed. Now, I'm going to click on the word setup. This is the general area where I changed the printer, but I need to go to the word setup, the setup option here. And so that I don't have to tile so many pages, I want to go ahead and choose tabloid as my paper. If you leave it as letter, it'll still tile, you'll just have more pages to have to bring together. Okay, so I'm doing tabloid, and that's working out so far. And on your page position, usually here in the options area, page position, switch that from upper left to centered, okay? Just helps keep things kind of together nicely. When you have centered selected, it also tiles things kind of evenly, hopefully. Now, the next thing I'm going to choose here in the print dialog box, and I know if you're sitting further in the back, you may not be able to see this part because it's at the bottom, but near the bottom in the options area is the word tile, and you check on tile. Now, I don't like to use auto. The reason why is in the preview we can see here that it's going to use 4 pieces of 11 by 17. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's way too many. We should be able to get this into 2 11 by 17s. So I might go ahead and do an auto justify instead of auto. Auto justify means it's going to center it nicely. Now, let me backtrack for just a second because page position is grayed out. I guess it doesn't matter if we make it centered or not. I am just in the habit to set things at centered when I print. So you'll see that this is grayed out. So that work that I did and made it centered, I guess this is canceling it out. But you want to do auto justify. There's also a manual option which you can basically tell it, well, I just clicked on here and you can't really move anything, but you can kind of tell it where to print from. Now, you can't tell it where to print from in this window. You actually have to use in InDesign this little 0 margin thing, and we move that around. I'm not going to discuss that because it's much harder to deal with, and auto justify just works just so much better. Okay? So auto justify. Now my overlap, 1.5 inches is quite a bit of overlap. What that means is it's going to print the same thing on the edges. It'll leave just a little bit of what the next tile has on the edge of the print. So there'll be some overlap. Let's say the word tile is being tiled. If this is where it cuts, it'll have a little bit of the T, the bottom of the T. It'll print more of that, just a little smidge on the first printout, and then it'll print the top of it. So you can actually take it to the light table and overlay them, and your image will actually overlay, and you'll be able to see if things match up. Now, our overlap of the 2 tiles, the overlap will be it'll be adequate to have that be a 1/2 inch. You don't need to have quite such a big overlap. So a 1/2 inch overlap is fine. So I've tiled auto-justified with a 1/2 inch of an overlap. This is where the top tile overlaps the bottom tile. There's a little bit of that image shared, and it overlaps. I usually do turn on crop marks. This allows me to figure out where the edge of my poster is. You don't need to turn on registration marks or any of the other marks. If you have a bleed and you didn't set it when you created the document, then you'll have to uncheck use document bleed settings, and you'll have to type in 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch, and then hit that little link tool. If you did set the document bleed when you created the document in the first place, which in previous demonstrations that I did not record, we talked about grids and we set up a bleed. If you set up the bleed, you can simply click on use document bleed settings. If you forgot to do that, then you set the bleed here. Okay, now I'm going to go to page setup and make sure the right printer is selected. It should be the Xerox 7800A, the right paper stock. We're good there. I hit OK. And I might, if I were to print double-sided, or if I want to adjust something on the printer, maybe I'm printing to a heavier paper stock. There in the lower right or left-hand corner near page setup is printer. Hit OK for that warning. Turn off two-sided, please, because it'll tile it to one piece of paper double-sided. That does you no good. So make sure you click on that printer button and turn two-sided off. Otherwise, it'll print on both sides, and you won't want that. It'll print the top of your poster on one side and the bottom on the other side of the paper. So turn two-sided off. We hit show details. If you wanted to mess with color a little bit, where it says layout right here, you can go into color matching, and we have sometimes used other profiles and told it to, we've chosen the Photoshop profile. Photoshop 5 is the most recent one in here. Photoshop default CMYK. We have seen some improvement in printing when we choose that. Again, let's go back to where I found that. Originally this said layout when I showed my details here. Layout, you click on layout, you go to color matching, and it will say automatic. You want to maybe choose an other profile and scroll down to the Photoshop 5 default CMYK. It's still not going to be as jewel toned as your monitor. It's still going to print darker than what your monitor is. That's just the nature of additive color on monitors versus subtractive color on printing. So I hit OK. If you were to want to print on a heavier cardstock, paper stock, we would want to go to the Xerox features, switch from color matching or layout to Xerox features, and we can actually set a paper stock and a paper color. So paper type would be heavy, extra heavy, that kind of stuff. If you want to print on a nicer paper, just let me know and we'll figure out what setting that's going to be. Okay, so some people also will choose a slightly different color like an ivory sheet. So we can set that here. But for now I'm just printing white on the printer default, so I'm good there. So everything I needed to change in this print area, this print option area is has been changed. Excuse me.
That was use color matching, Photoshop 5 default?
Yeah, no, Photoshop 5 is not the default. The default, excuse me, color matching, the default, oh, I'm sorry, it does say default, doesn't it? Pardon me. I'm sorry, I was thinking of the word automatic. My apologies. So yeah, it'd be Photoshop 5 default CMYK. My apologies, yes. Okay, so I'm going to hit the print, but it doesn't print. That's just setting up the printer setup. Now I'm ready to hit print. So I'm going to hit print. And what's, yes?
So you clicked, sorry.
That's all right.
So you clicked printer to set up that, what you just talked about?
Yeah, I clicked on printer to set up the, to turn off double-sided printing and to set my Photoshop color stuff. Yes?
Just out of curiosity, why does the printer need to know what color paper is?
It will adjust how much ink goes down certain colors. It goes, oh, if you're printing on blue, we're going to use maybe a little less cyan because, or a little bit more, we don't know. It can kind of adjust how much ink to lay down to compensate for the color of that paper. It's a smarter printer than maybe some of the printers we have at home. Okay? Now, I'm going to stop the recording because everything else is hand skills at this point. So I'm going to stop the recording. That was just for printing. So let me stop this recording.